Okay, welcome to part two of our two-parter. That was why it would be part two and not three parts of our two-parter episode on Festung Europa, where we go behind the scenes of the book, look at it from a narrative campaign-wise, and try to extricate the scribblings and scriptures of people that have written, the authors that have written in the lines. And one of those we're going to look at in just a second is going to be the summit that was held by what was it they call it?
Pretty
The
much
summit, which
everybody
is
but the Green
redacted.
Vault. Yeah.
The
Yeah,
Necromobilization Summit.
Yep.
that's right. Well, no, the Green Vault was there.
Well, yes.
Was right.
They weren't
had
supposed
they
to
had
be.
resources there.
Yeah,
Right.
spoilers.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some spoilers there. So anyway, we went through the first part of the book where in podcast part one, we just very briefly went through Bring It Down, or Bring Down the Giant, the first scenario. We looked over Normandy book. We did a kind of 30,000 feet view of the book. And now in part two, we will go on into the summit, uh, touchdown, the scenarios, and then Valentine, and then what we think's next. So, with that, Sean, being the keeper of the scribblings on this, what's your review of the report, the summit?
Well, I believe one of us is supposed to walk everybody through it first. So let's start with the story, and then we can pick out our good bits.
All right. So
Nice.
this is, I'm going to read it verbatim. The report on August 14th, 1944, a covert international summit on necromobilization in Europe, Hotel de Bergs in Geneva, Switzerland. There's basically 4 attendees, which is in essence saying everybody but the Green Vault, but it turns out their fingers are everywhere.
Yeah, representative from 4 powers.
Yes.
There's many attendees.
Yeah. So the representatives were the United States, Great Britain, one representative from the USSR, and believe it or not, the Empire of Japan. Now, the Empire of Japan, when you're reading through it, it sounds like they're more, I don't want to say traitors, because, well, I guess they're traitors to Japan because they're looking for sanctuary in the US, because their ultimate end game is to get to Arizona. But that doesn't happen, which we will find out. So this is a first-hand account, and it's written from the OSSS agent's point of view, which was Ralph Casey, or Casey, depending on your pronunciation, and it was confirmed by Great Britain and the USSR, the Soviets, but the Soviets was more of a roundabout way. So it was a little bit rushed because the Japanese trip over, they were constantly had kind of issues for everything from fuel breakdowns to having to go obviously through war-torn territory. So when they got there, they were a little flabbergasted, a little bit on edge. So they're like, yeah, we got to do this. We got to do this now. So of course, being from Japan and the enemies, the United States and Great Britain wanted a little bit of proof. Mainly the guy that was running it from from the USS, or from the USA, wanted proof from the Japanese that they were actually going to contribute something and they weren't just there trying to pick their brains. So the Japanese knew of the retasking of Big Boy from hitting Berlin to Dresden, and that it was done by Donovan during a meeting with Roosevelt. So this caused a little bit of a witch hunt. If you read the notes on the side, I'm going to refer to them as well as the main dossier. So this led to this is going to lead to a witch hunt for a mole, as there was a limited amount of people who knew of this meeting between Roosevelt and Donovan. The Japanese also knew about the Soviet hemotype alpha, which the Soviets quickly shut down and are basically like, we don't need to talk about this. I believe you. You are who you say you are. To which the OSS are now worried that their Helsinki office is compromised because they didn't report any of this, and they want a confirmation from their guy in St. Petersburg, who sounds like it's not a spy so much as a turncoat or somebody that's available for money, and they want to get unprompted information from him if they can. The Japanese also admit that Herr Sievers, a former SS archaeologist, is now working in Iowa Jima. I can never pronounce that. Iojima. Thank you. And they are, in fact, trying to develop Japanese Totenkorb, which we know is successful because you can field them. They also admit that they don't like it. The Japanese in general don't like it, but they want to stay on the good side of the Green Vault because the Green Vault isn't just ahead of them in rift technology. They think they're centuries ahead of them with their knowledge of the rift. Sievers was cozy with Himmler and the rest of the German high command that left, and there was a little note there which I thought was interesting. They said, when the German high command left, stepped off the face of the earth. So the Green Vault, it wasn't a mass, like there wasn't a battle. It sounds like the Green Vault just came in and quietly took out the Nazi hierarchy. And
maybe there's a
yeah. And so the question was, why did they leave this guy? And there's a couple other smattering of SS guys that got left behind. So it makes you wonder if these guys have always been part of the Green Vault, or if they saw the writing on the wall and said, no, we want to be with you. And then you get to the juicy stuff right towards the end, where Ralph Casey, admits to killing everybody. He poisons everybody at the summit. And he says to his boss, I'm real sorry, boss. Honest, I am. You hired me to analyze and adapt, so that's what I'm doing now. The writing's been on the wall for a good while. So he's adapting. He's gone over to the dark side. He's gone to the Green Vault. I've been 100% straight with you, out of respect, and I know you know baloney when you smell it. It won't help you, but let it warn you. You are all real swell, and I hate to see something happen to you. Their reach extends further than you know, boss, and it's all to plan, even your and my role in it. And then there's this enigma that I haven't quite been able to figure out. Maybe you guys can enlighten me. It says, our newly returned travelers ran out of gas shortly after we vacated the building. The Swiss are in possession of their remains. It won't do them any good. Eternal Death lives at Dresden and Iwo Jima, which is the Totenkarv. Iwo Jima.
A very famous place from World War II.
I know. I just can never pronounce it.
John Wayne was
when I read it. When I read it and I hear it, two different things go through my head, but I know the place. Anyways, and it says, do not attack, please. And then he gives a German response, which I didn't look up, so maybe somebody else can tell me what this is. And he signs it, former departmental research analyst Ralph Casey. So I don't think Ralph Casey started out as a Green Vault. I think during the machinations of this summit, the build up to the summit, he decided, like you said, the writing's on the wall. These guys know everything. Everybody's following the puppet masters of the Green Vault, doing what they want, reacting how they knew they would react. So I think he's working with them and turned with them because he's, like I said, he's seen the writing on the wall and he thinks they're going to be the winner. He thinks that everybody's going ahead with this. So that was it in a nutshell. I mean, it's 4 pages and there's notes on the side, but that's what I glimmered out of it. And I like the very 1940s, 1950s kind of dossier feel that it has, you know, the black and white pictures that are added, notes in the sidelines, the redactions with a black marker, so you can actually kind of see the words in there. I wanted to get a magnifying glass later and actually look closely to see if I can make out any of the words, because I'm pretty sure you can. It looks like you can if you worked at it, just to see if there's any Easter eggs in there, but I just did not have time before the recording to do that. And I like the very, like that 1940s feel that it has with everything. So what did you guys think of this summit? How did you think it affects the timeline? Was there a favorite point in here, or is there a point in here where you're like, aha, or
The words he also said were that he got the U.S. and the British representatives out. So I don't think he poisoned everybody.
But the USSR, he didn't get out necessarily.
That's right. So,
oh yeah, it did. You're right. I made sure our guys got out one piece, the Brits too, although one or two of them may need to have their portraits updated. So he just killed the Japanese guys.
Well, he poisoned them, but then, and that's when, did he say, and that's when?
Yeah, and he
The
said
room
then
got a
the
first-
room got firsthand demonstration of exactly why the sun is about to set on the Allied resistance to pretty much anything the Green Vault has in mind.
Yeah, so I think maybe something else happened in that room that he had to get people out of.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So
I think this is going to come back and haunt us. I think we're going to get more information with all of the, like, what's going on in Helsinki. Is St. Petersburg gonna confirm the who well, we know Donovan is probably the one that leaked the information to the Green Vault, because nobody can find him anymore. So he was at the meeting. So I think this might have been written by somebody that says, hey, find out who knew about the Donovan Roosevelt meeting, so we know who leaked this information. But we know that Donovan's disappeared, so it was probably Donovan himself, unless there's another mole in there.
and especially since the Japanese were targeted, it makes you wonder if it's the Green Vault's plan for Japan to attack America, and they're just pushing them that way.
Yeah.
So that German text at the bottom, Das Gewölbe unsere Rettung, means the vault, our salvation.
So he is bought in.
Drank the Kool-Aid.
Which I wonder what it was that he was shown that made him switch, because up until this point, right, does it have it doesn't have a date, does it, anywhere? But August 14th,
August
1940.
14th is the date of the summit.
Yeah, so I don't know. Do they know how? Because it's saying don't attack. I mean,
Yeah.
that to me indicates that this is before the big power play, right?
Yeah.
So he's like, don't do it. But I don't know. I mean, the thing is, as well, is we don't know how different the universe is, right? Because going back to your question about the Nazis disappearing off the planet, I mean, our assumption is that it's Adolf Hitler, right?
Yeah.
It could be, Adolf Hitler or something, right?
Well, they do name Himmler. They do name Himmler.
Yeah,
so.
and it could be, it could be anything. Like, it could be anything, right?
Yeah.
So, and we say, well, what level of Nazis did? I mean, you'd have had. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's definitely quite a lot there to mull over on that. But what I agree. Going back to the travelers, what does it mean by the travelers? Because at the beginning of it, it talks about there being fellow vulnerable. Our man in Chiba identified Kitano and Otomo as vulnerable fellow travelers.
Yeah.
Right. So travelers must be a reference to something. Right. So it would have been one if it had just been that, but it says it later as well.
Yeah, the last paragraph, he says, our newly returned travelers ran out of gas shortly after we vacated the building.
So what does that mean?
Yeah.
Ran out of gas. That's not a term people use for they're poisoned.
Yeah.
Right.
And,
So
well,
there must be.
when he first talks about it at the beginning of the dossier, I thought he meant the Japanese because they've traveled the furthest. But I don't know anymore. I'm not 100% on that.
I think it maybe is the Japanese, but I think it means that they've been through the portal.
Or they have a parasite.
Yeah.
Or they have a parasite.
And after they poisoned them, the parasite was able to detach. And
yeah, it could be any of them. But vulnerable fellow travelers. Travelers to me means, like I said, either there's something in them, like a parasite, or they've been somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And the fact that they say the bodies won't do them any good must mean that there's no that there. If the bodies would have been good, they would have been able to identify something from them.
But because they don't even know what to look for, there's no reason to look because you can't find it.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I find that interesting. But the other thing as well is I don't know why he killed them.
That I think was Green Vault's interference.
To stop them from going to Arizona.
But they already kind of knew. So the only thing, so they must have known more or something. Right?
Well, they said they didn't divulge anymore. Like as soon as they, like all the information that they did divulge was just to give them credence so that they could discuss further. But as soon as they divulged that information, the Japanese with Sievers, the Soviets, like as soon as the Japanese finished saying this is who we are, that's when poison took effect.
Conspiracy theory, if you want a conspiracy theory, the Green Vault aliens knew that the Iwo Jima Vault aliens were there, and they wanted to eliminate them because the Iwo Jima Vault aliens had now crossed over.
Yeah, they're in
and
the
there's
wrong
some sort
theater.
of war going on between these vaults. So every vault has their own faction, and it's just a proxy war here in alternate Earth.
Yep.
There's a conspiracy theory for
I
you.
like that conspiracy theory. I like the fact that we as a planet are now the recipient of proxy wars. It's not like the major superpowers doing proxy wars in Africa or the Middle East or whatever the case may be. It's us. All of us are now. Life lessons.
Yep.
So
Sean, we'll see.
Did you have a favorite part in this?
Well, that was it. That little twist at the end, I thought was really good. That whole line, the room getting a first-hand demonstration of the Green Vault kind of thing happening.
Because it kind of makes you think it was more than just the poison. Like there was something else.
Well, yeah, something else happened to the room.
Yeah.
And it was the Green Vault showing its hand. And then it was basically showing the powers that be that they are, they're powerless against their machinations. But the pictures that were attached to the dossier appeared to show, I don't know if they were burned corpses or undead corpses.
I thought they were the undead.
Yeah. But that is what they were there to discuss too.
Yeah.
So they could have had pictures as part of the thing.
The last thing interesting is the very last paragraph that's written in, scribbled at the bottom, is it refers to Lord Halifax, who is of the British contingent. But Lord Halifax was out of the picture in our world. Like Winston Churchill basically sidelined him in 1940, I think it was. So he kind of disappeared from government. So it's interesting to see that his name's up, whether that means anything or not. But the fact that who's the person who,
but it also,
whoever the report is for, the person who received the report, basically has said that he's still in contact with the British.
Yeah.
So,
but they also said Lord Halifax isn't passing it along. So does that mean he's still working against Churchill, or he's holding a grudge because Churchill
Yeah,
didn't
I
get
don't
rid of
know.
him, or Churchill couldn't get rid of him this time in this timeline? But there's still a friction and a fraction, so maybe they want, like
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, when you say I'm not giving it to the government, you basically mean I'm not giving it to Winston Churchill.
yeah.
So that's kind of what that refers to. So
Yeah.
interesting. So yeah, no, that was pretty cool. That was a very interesting.
I
Yeah,
wish there was a
I
couple more
wonder
of
what's going to be.
those in the book,
Yeah.
like full
I think
size, like
one in
instead
the
of
next.
little excerpts, right?
Yeah, hopefully there'll be something in the next book.
Yeah.
All right. I guess
It-
on to
I look
Operation
forward to the
Touchdown.
next. Indeed. All right. So Operation Touchdown is what Valentine was setting the scene for. So they did Valentine to sort of get a landing point make establish a zone where they can. So when they go to do touchdown, they have a sort of a path to get out, so they're not deep in Germany on their own.
Yeah.
As they get to Dresden. So it begins with recon flights clearing away. They're still so they don't have the big huge AA monsters that they do in the Festungs, but they still have these little towers set up all over the place, AA towers. So those still have to be cleared out to have a chance to get closer. And they're going to use the Autobahn as a landing strip when they as they approach. So they send in recon flights and they sort of map a path weaving amongst the towers and get a line that they're going to be able to go in. And there's an interesting line in here when they're going in with their recon, they not only run into jets, but they also run into Nachtjägers as well as the A. So they have the monsters flying around. They lose about 80 men, they make a point of saying, when they're establishing this flight path and setting up a landing zone. But they go in and now they've set up a spot. They got a little landing place. They're still a bit of a distance from Dresden. They can only get so close, but so they land. They got a little base set up, and they're sending in two jump infantry regiments, one parachute infantry regiment, and then an engineering battalion, and then they've got one para artillery battalion. So it's an entire force, right? But it's pretty much all jump. Then they've got two Walker battalions, and we don't ever get to see a Walker battalion up close because in the book you're only really taking them as a platoon. But it'd be interesting to just see what that. I guess it would be 20 some odd, 21 some odd jumping light mags. So they've got the 22nd and the 23rd Airborne Walker Battalion. And then the support. They got the AA battalion, a mechanized AA battalion, and then they got medical, QA, the quartermaster, the maintenance, the normal stuff, all the little companies of that, and then the Egghead battalion is the one different thing that goes with this. And the Egghead battalion is really more company or platoon size, and it includes Wells, and she's been set up as a lieutenant. Tells me if it's a platoon that she's leading the platoon kind of thing. So Lieutenant Wells and her other scientists are also attached to this large force of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 regiments, or 3 regiments, a bunch of battalions, and then another company of miscellaneous. So it's a good size force. All right. So they're going in. They got gliders and airplanes. 2,000 some odd airplanes. They drop in, and then with the Egghead Battalion, the captain has a note that this is a very valuable battalion. So Roberta Wells kind of strong-armed her way in here. She's like, I have to get to Dresden because I have to study the Rift. It's the only way we're going to blah 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 blah. So she goes in, but the colonel, lieutenant colonel, the colonel in charge of the entire thing, has orders that if there's a chance that the eggheads are going to be captured, he's to eliminate them. So they're seen as very high valuable assets that can't fall into the enemy's hands. So they land, and they're able to. So they're going to land, and they're going to make two sort of a prongs. They're going to divide their force into two. They're going to send the 120th with one with the 22nd. So there's two infantry regiments and there's two Walker regiments. So they pair them up, one each. And the plan is to sort of, one's going to go straight towards Dresden, and the other's kind of going to do a hook. And then the parachute infantry regiment is going to sort of hold the base where once they set it up, and probe backwards to the west to try and meet up with Valentine, which we covered before, and is going to sort of be their path out. So that's the plan. That the parachute infantry regiment establishes the road out, and then these guys are going to run into Dresden, do their work, and then they could have a line. They'll go from there. But at the very least, they're going to do something with the rift or whatever when they get there. At least Roberta will. All right. So that's what is set up. And so they begin. So we're in July. And so around July 2nd is when it starts. And then it goes on for the entire month of them trying to get to Dresden. And what happens is, as the 120th is trying to go straight towards it, all the bridges are out. So the engineering battalion is coming up behind, establishing bridgeheads. But the jumpers are all they get across the river and then they carry on. So they're going to keep advancing, but all that support that they brought with them is going to be behind while the engineers set up a sort of a roadway so they can all catch up. So on they go, and then it starts to bog down, and what they start to run into, not too long after getting in there, is a bunch of Russian zombies. So the Russian attack was back in June. So those zombies have had a chance to be collected and rediverted, but they do say that it's the Russian attack that allowed them to progress without too much interference. So so they are making some progress, but they in the book they call it 1,000 steps back and 1,000 steps forward, 500 steps back. So it's slow progress, but they run into this horde of zombies, and they're using their mechs their light walkers to deal with this horde of zombies, and it works fairly well, but it still slows them down enough that they're just bogged down. They're not able to make the progress that they want to get. So the and as they're progressing and they're fighting these undead, they're seeing their own troops appearing in the numbers after the fight. So they fight the one time, the next time they've got their own Americans as zombies fighting back against them. So the eggheads request that if the wounded can't be brought back, that they be killed rather than fall into enemy hands. And Colonel Harrison, who's in charge, says he's not prepared to do that, but the troops themselves start doing it rather than, because they don't want to turn into zombies either. But they're completely bogged down. They can't get there. They can't maneuver their force. They've given up on the hook. They've sort of come up with a new plan now. They said, all right, so we're gonna, instead of two fronts we're gonna really just try and force one right through. So they tell the 120th that they're just going to go straight in, and then the 121st with its walkers attached to it are going to sort of shore up the advance. So as the 120th is going to go as fast as it can straight forward, and then the walkers, the other battalion, is going to kind of shore it up and keep them moving as best they can and keep their sides sort of free. So that advances so far, but it still grinds to a halt. They still can't quite get to Dresden. And this is going to bring us to our first of the mission. So now they're just outside of Dresden. They can't get in. There's just too much resistance for this large force to progress. So Lieutenant Wells sees how close she is to Dresden. So she says, I'm going in. And she grabs a bunch of eggheads and they just start sneaking in because now there's only like, there's only a dozen of them or so, because not all the eggheads go with her, but the ones who are fanatic about this topic as she is. So they just start sort of hopping their way in, really quiet, moving along. And now Colonel Harrison's orders kick in that she can't fall into enemy hands. So now he has to go after her. So he sends in the paratroops and he says, "Go get her." She can't fall into enemy hands. So this large force of infantry is following behind her, and they get all the attention. And this allows Wells to sort of get her way into Dresden. And that's how Wells finds herself in Dresden with just her eggheads all alone. And that was on, so that took all of July. So it's August 1st when her group gets into Dresden. And they get into the town and they see the factories, the zombie warehouses, the labs. And then they sort of start sneaking around, and that's as far as they get because they're immediately captured because they're a bunch of eggheads in a highly militarized city with
Lots of
eyes
security.
Yeah. So she gets captured. So now she is brought before Zoglig. All her eggheads are killed. They only really want her. So she's captured. She's brought before Zoglig. And then we have that. There's a little spider web story, I think, in there, where he has Wells in her armor still. Her weapons and everything in her backpack are over there, her jump pack, and she's just sitting there in her armor, all tied down and stuff. And he brings in a body and he says, "Here, do you want to watch me animate a corpse?" Because he's trying to convince her. Zoglig is like, "You should join me. I can use your brain, and together we can study the rift." So he says, "Do you want to watch?" And she says no, which is interesting because everything about her up to this point has been having an extreme interest in what's going on with the rift and the technology. But she says no in the story. She doesn't watch. But then the transformation happens. The thing turns into it, and she actually thinks about this proposal from Zoglig. He says, together we can understand the rift. It's all about the science for this man. He doesn't care about people or whatever. He just wants to play with the rift. So she's tempted, but then there's that zombie sitting there groaning away, and she says this corny line, like that liberty. This doesn't look like liberty to me, or something like that. And then
I think liberty might have a different definition around these parts.
there it is. Yeah,
Very
that's it.
1940s, very Midwest.
Yeah, she does her corny comment, and then so she basically says no. And at this point, the rest, the 109th finally shows up behind her. So it was the infantry battalion that was sent to chase her down arrives, and they start attacking Dresden. They finally got here, so Zoglig has to go off. Well, during this distraction, Wells, Lieutenant Wells, is able to escape. So she managed to get over and untie her bonds, and she gets out and she's running around town, and she finds this big rift energy precariously set up, and she sets it to blow a big battery of rift energy just sitting in one of the buildings. So now things start blowing up all over the place. And the explosion is big enough that now there's the whole area of Dresden is already covered in rift storms. But now, because she set off the explosion, there's like random rift explosions happening all over the place, which is going to come into play in that mission later when we talk about it. And she's able to escape that way. With all the explosions going off, she's able to get back out of town, and she meets up with some of the 109th, and they are able to destroy a bunch of stuff and then get out of town. The problem is they can't go east because that way is all blocked up for them. They have to go west. So
There'd be Soviets that way.
That's right. So they cross into the Czechoslovakia border, sort of chasing the same path the retreating Soviets followed a month earlier. So you'd imagine there's random zombies all over the place as well. So they run away. And there they run into Czech partisans, and the partisans are there to help them. They explain to them all about the harmonic towers that the Russians have set up that we talked about in the Russian mission, and in the story about Pluto. So so they explain what's going on with that, how you can't get close to them. The undead can, but the living can't. So they say thank you very much, and with the help of the partisans, the battalion is able to, in small numbers, trickle its way through Czechoslovakia and head east again. And if you remember, from way back at the beginning, in the north is where the U.S. landed, in the south, across the Rhine, is where the Brits were. So they're coming back through Czechoslovakia. So they're heading into the territory that the English, the Commonwealth, are fighting over. And that's where they run into B is for Birdie, this crazy little robot. He gets a little right up in there. And he's basically an automaton whose protocols ended up going a little crazy for a little bit before the repair protocols kicked back in again, and he's become sort of I call him Birdie Sue. He just shows up everywhere and solves the problems for whoever he runs into and fights. He's just running around wild and solo, attacking Nazis or not Nazis, Greenwald, attacking the Axis, and repairing himself from whatever other British bots he finds that have been destroyed along the way. So he shows up. He's able to get Roberta Wells and her party saved from a bunch of Germans who showed up at the last moment, or who had not in the last moment, but had them all pinned down. That'll actually be the third mission, although I don't know if he's in it. And then Roberta Wells finally is able to get back to the Allies and is able to evac after all that. And it's not just her that this is happening with. There's a bunch of troops all trickling back at different places. And then the later on, or Craig will be talking about what happens back up north while this whole Dresden retreat from the west was going on. But for the one more thing before I turn it over to you guys, is there was a biography there about Zoglig that was interesting. It talked about his tragic backstory, how he takes credit himself for a lot of the decisions the Greenwald is making, and all his decisions are about getting to play with the Rift. There's a blurb in his backstory about how in the Spanish War he first noticed this sort of undead energy flitting around the field, and he's always been trying to replicate it. And then he figured the vault. He convinced the vault. He says he convinced the vault that an atomic bomb might do the trick to get things going, and that's how we ended up where it was here. So that gave the backstory to Zoglig in there. It's a good little read, the Harvestman's biography. It's in German, but it means Harvestman. So that's worth looking at. And there's one little tidbit at the end where Roberta is writing in her diary, where she mentions that she wishes her diary is written as if to a person named Eve, and she wishes Eve was there. So if you remember, she does have a dead mentor who she really wants to avenge. So we can assume Eve was her mentor. All right. So that'll get us to the missions. So that was an overview of the story of the Operation Touchdown, sort of how it played out. I flew through a bit of it a little fast. There's a lot of little interesting bits in there, but that's the general gist. Did you guys have parts about it you liked?
I liked when Roberta runs into Birdie, because I love Birdie. And she reports that she ran into Birdie and then gets in shit for not capturing Birdie and just letting him go off, because the Americans want to know how and why he's doing what he's doing, because he's not supposed to be. How is he so autonomous?
Yeah.
But more autonomous than the rest of the autonomous automatons.
Well, they hate them, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
They do.
Like
because they've got that very gift of God where,
they don't trust them.
Yeah, we create life. We create life.
The mouse of her report too, the little mouse that lives inside Birdie.
Yeah.
That was also not in her report.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the other thing as well, I mean, just because I would imagine that there are many Americans who in the story do believe, in the that Roosevelt was healed and it's all because of the glory and all this stuff, doesn't necessarily mean though that everybody else believes that. And maybe the eggheads are like, no, this is alien stuff. Kind of right. There's a scientific reason for why things are the way they are. So I don't think the thing I like about this book is we've not really gone into the Soviets, so we don't really know too much about their societies. But you're starting to get a hint at the civilization, the societies behind each of these.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think I'd want to be living in Dresden, even after the bombs dropped, right? You imagine going to get some bread and this you get vaporized by some rift storm. It's like, that's great.
Or jump by a Totenkorb.
Right. Jump by token. So it's interesting because there's also, it hints that there are some cities that surrender to the Allies, right? They don't, they actually, there's one that surrenders because they don't want to get attacked, right? So it shows you that life is still going on for people.
Yeah.
There's a thing that, and there's the same with the Commonwealth and the automatons. Although you're only seeing that from the British perspective, you don't know if there's automatons with an Australian accent or a Canadian accent
but you can
whatever.
kind of, with the fact that Australia and Canada and the rest of the Commonwealth are now back under the Whitehall, you can kind of get the feeling that it is that way. Or it's
well, I
increasing.
don't know. I mean, the war efforts on the Whitehall, I don't know if the entire Commonwealth is under one government, though, right?
No, they.
Like Whitehall is not the government. Whitehall is the military thing, right?
Oh, I thought that was the other name for the Parliament.
No. Parliament is Parliament.
Oh, okay.
So if they'd have said it's all under Parliament, then I would have. So
then that's not really much different than our World War II, because the British and the Australians and the Canadians were under British control, so that would be under Whitehall. Like I'm asking our local British expert.
I think the difference between them is that militarily, in K-47, the under Whitehall would mean that the British would be able to just demand and tell them, you're going to provide us with troops and stuff, and this is how they're going to be.
Yeah, you can't.
Whereas in our world, the Canadians were, and the Australians that were really, in many parts, under the auspice of their own country. I mean, when the Japanese got close to Australia, the Australians pulled all of their forces out from Africa, right, and sent them over to Guinea and stuff. So there's that side of it. I suppose my point is I love the fact, I love them just kind of hinting what's happening behind the scenes of things and
daily life.
Thinking about it. I mean, again, just going back to Canada for a second, Canada and the US did most of the building. Did much, not most, but sorry, let me rephrase that, separate them out. The Americans did the significant majority of the building, but put those aside for a moment, the Canadians did the second most amount. So it makes me wonder if that's where the automatons will start being built. Right. So it's interesting how you start to go down different paths from right. We could do a whole episode on the economics of automatons in 1947. That's what that would mean.
Learn more, even though the next book is Japan and the US, just because Canada is right there.
I think with the amount of writers that K-47 or that Warlord has hired to get this stuff off the ground, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a book series in the work. Actually, I'd be very unhappy if there wasn't.
That's true.
Because several of their writers have written complete novels or series for GW. And this world has that potential. It's an open, like, it's a world building experiment by them, and they can take it wherever
up to 1947.
Well, it can go beyond 47
Yeah, but Pete Gosling has said no, it's not. It's going to stick in 1947 for the moment.
for the
Right.
moment. But I mean, 10 years down the road, it can go beyond. Like they can still call it K-47 and
So
go.
48 will be the sci-fi version with aliens.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah. I'll
But
be
I mean,
quite interested.
even if they do
Conflict
that those 3
54.
years, even if they do those 3 years from 44 to 47, there's still so much content that you know, everyday life in Britain, everyday life in the US of people that are going through, am I going to get conscripted? Am I going to lose this job? This war has been going on for almost 10 years. How do we survive? To guys on the front line, units,
Yeah.
Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah,
All over
yeah.
you.
No, they could start a series of books starting in 1944 when they first meet the Totem Corps.
Yeah. Or even slightly before that. Like,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, so that's what I like.
All right.
Right.
So that brings us to scenario number 3, I believe. Touchdown.
Yeah, we can do the scenarios before doing Valentine.
Yeah.
Let's do the scenarios for touchdown.
Okay, so what we have is, again, US versus Axis. Because this is in and around the Dresden drop, your list for the US is 2,000 points, requires Firefly Commander or Roberta Wells as Firefly Roberta Wells, not the other one, and 2 Firefly Airborne squads. That is your minimum. Like, they have to be in there for the minimum requirements. This is the next bullet point I thought was interesting because it says no powered armored units may be taken. Right? And we know the Americans only have the 1 power armored unit, but they give it a caveat that says unless they also have the flight special rule. So is that opening the door for maybe having the heavy infantry being jump capable in the future? Another unit down the road, maybe?
Maybe, yeah.
So that it's open for this scenario. You can say, hey, I've got a heavy unit that has that. The only field artillery that can be taken is light artillery. The only anti-tank taken can be light anti-tank or medium anti-tank. Any vehicles must have the jump rule, which basically leaves you with the Guardian and Linebacker off the top of my head. And the only named hero again is Roberta Wells, the Firefly. You get 2,000 points to make that list up. The Axis can take whatever they want, but no heroes. So you're not going to have that Totem Corps platoon, or because it. Oh no, you can, because you can make that without Zogli. But they only get 1,500 points, so they're playing 500 points down, which makes sense because when you look at the deployment in the map, the Axis also get 3 flak batteries that are twin heavy automatic cannons that have the flak and 360-degree arc of fire. So for deployment, you divide the table lengthwise. All right, you play the table sides length, and you divide the table into 3 segments. So on a 6-foot table, 72 inches, you're looking at 22 inches a piece, 21, something like that. Anyways, in each, you got the Autobahn. I like how they labeled the road. It is actually the Autobahn, rowing right down the center of the table from left to right along the parallel to the long table edge.
I would like to point out, though, that the Autobahn, apparently, according to them, looks like just a 2-lane road.
Yeah, it's just a 2.
Rather than
it's the small one. They didn't finish widening
it. Road, right?
Attackers are not set up on. Oh, sorry. The defenders must split up their force evenly as possible, and they go into the 3 sections as you decide. But like if you have 6 platoons, you got to put 2 in each section. If you have 7 platoons, 2 in 2 segments, and the third segment would get 3. That third segment isn't necessarily segment 3, but whichever the segments you decide. The attackers are not set up on the table and start the game in reserve. They are left in reserve. All the attackers' units deploy using the special rules outlined, which we'll get into. The objective, obviously, is to destroy the 3 flak batteries. There's 2 on the, I guess, if you're looking at it like this, there's 2 on the north, 1 on the south. I'm pretty sure that you want the 2 on the north being the defender side, just to give you some movement. All attacking units with flight or jump special rules may arrive from reserve from turn 1 onwards rather than turn 2 onwards, and they must deploy directly onto the battlefield as described. And we do this. And then all other attacking units. So if you take the medium, the light anti-tank gun, and the light artillery gun, they can come in on turn 2, and they just arrive as normal. So you just walk them on, drive them on, however you may want to do that. So when the order test arrived from reserves is passed, you roll a d3 to decide which segment of the battlefield you're actually going to land in. So you have no control over this. It's completely random. Then you place 1 model from the unit, or if it's a walker, that walker, where you want it to land in that segment. Any eligible flak batteries or defending units with flak rules that has not been defined assigned an order die and is not locked in close combat automatically fires at the unit if it lies within their range and their arc of fire. Remembering that the flak batteries have 360 arc of fire, and their range is the board, so they're always going to get to shoot at least 1 unit coming in. No line of sight is required, so they're removing that from the units that aren't the flak batteries, but they are automatically putting a -1 to hit. So you're hitting on 5s instead of the normal 4s. There is no other modifiers, so there's no modifiers for range, and that's what happens. So if the arriving unit is destroyed by this flak fire, you just take that model off the board and you don't go any further. If it isn't destroyed, you randomly determine the direction by rolling the unit's order die. If you've ever looked at the order die, you'll see above advance or run, there's a little tiny triangle. So you just roll that close to the unit, and that where that triangle is pointing, you roll 2d6, add those numbers together, and that's where you move the model. You're going to move it that many inches in the direction of the arrow on the order die, whatever comes up. If it comes up advance or rally or down, that doesn't matter. You're looking for the triangle on it. Once you've moved the unit, the rest of the unit gets deployed in formation around it, or the rest of the unit that didn't die to any targeting if they happen to die. And then if they happen to die on the way in, they obviously don't get deployed. You then give it a rally, change the order dice to rally. And if it was hit by flak, assign the number of pin markers that would be appropriate for the unit that hit them. And if they weren't hit by flak, they take 1 pin just for showing up, because I think the idea is there's a lot of, they know people are jumping and they're just filling the air with lead. At this point, ambushes, if you have the axes have anybody on ambush, they can now fire their ambush. So if you happen to roll that 2d6 and that brings you out of LOS, the ambush obviously doesn't go off. But if it brings you in, then the ambush can go off. So the flak batteries are treated as impassable terrain, and they block line of sight. Each one is a twin heavy automatic automatic cannon, just like I said. It can only fire HE, and when firing, you measure from the center of the battery. When the attacking units are arriving in the segment from the reserve, including any deploying to the battlefield using the flight, so even if you guys are walking on, you can shoot at them as well. They always hit on a roll of 6, so they've got even more of a modifier, and they are also not subject to any hit modifiers or penetration modifiers as a result of range. And rather than place an HE template, infantry or artillery units are assumed to have been hit. Assume 2 models on that unit are hit. For vehicles, you assume that the bottom armor is hit. I didn't know there was a bottom armor. I'm assuming it's just the exact opposite from your top armor, or the exact same as your top armor. So go with that. In either case, the unit takes D2 pin markers, and they don't benefit for cover, obviously, because it's considered you're a hit in the air. Like any flight, you'd never get that. At the end of the game turn, a flak battery is destroyed if any attacking unit is within 3 inches of it, unless the attacking unit also meets one or more of the following criteria. If you just arrive from reserve, you can't destroy the battery. If you've been assigned a rally order that turn, you can't destroy the battery, which if you just came in from reserve and you jumped in, you would have a rally dice anyways. And if any other defending units not locked in close combat are within 6 inches, they stop you from destroying it. And then it's 6 turns, and this one only continues on the result of a 1 or 2 for game 7. Obviously, victory is flak batteries have been destroyed, and the attacker has at least 1 unit. Sorry?
It continues on a 3+. It ends on a 1 or 2.
Oh, sorry, I misread it. Thank you. So yeah, so there's normally it's 4, 5, 6 it goes on, or 4, 5, 6 it doesn't, whichever. It's like a 50-50. Not this time. Defender wins if the attacker doesn't destroy the 3 flak batteries, and it has to have at least 1 unit in place. So if you destroy the last flak battery and at the end of the turn that last unit gets destroyed, defender wins. So I thought this was an interesting scenario. I like the mismatch of the points because obviously you've got these flak batteries that it looks like they get to shoot regardless. It doesn't look like they have an order dice. It looks like everything that comes on, they're automatically getting shot at this by this. Like I can't see anything that says it only gets 1 shot per turn. I may be wrong, but did you guys see that? Like I read it a couple times and I didn't see it, but it wouldn't be the first time I glazed over it.
They're strictly AA, so they're shooting the things jumping in.
Yeah, regardless. Like you bring 3 jump units in, it gets 3 shots. So,
probably can't depress to cover the ground.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting because usually on all the scenarios that we've seen so far, anything that has a special rule also has a die attached to it. Now, that said, I don't think the flak batteries can fire out of their individual segments. But again, I don't see that rule, but I think I would just kind of house rule that. If you're going to be able to shoot everything that comes in, you're not getting 3 twin heavy autocannons at everything that comes in. So I would say, if you're in segment 1, only flak battery 1 can fire at you.
Well, they can't shoot through each other. Or can they?
No,
Maybe
but they ignore LOS, right?
That's true, yeah, because you're coming from the sky.
Yeah, so they're shooting your way up here, so they're not shooting through each other. So
Yep.
That was the one limitation in the scenario I thought I saw. Like I couldn't see anywhere where these things were specifically said that 1 shot per turn or an order dice that doesn't let them shoot more than once. So I think I would house rule.
So they're just AA, but
yeah.
I think as the attacker, you want them all to shoot at the first unit.
Yeah, but I think it should only be the unit in their segment. Otherwise, every unit that comes in gets shot by all 3 of them.
Oh, but wait a minute.
No, it says arriving in their segment.
Yeah, okay, there it is. So it is. You don't have to house rule it. I did miss it. So they get to shoot, the way I read it, they get to shoot at everything coming in their segment. You bring in 1, they get 1 shot. You bring in 6 units into that segment, they get 6 shots. So I don't know. What did you guys think about reading about this, or think about this when you're reading it?
I like it. It reminds me of the old airdrop missions that we used to for airborne. It looks tough on the attacker,
which I think it should be.
Tough as the other one. Not as tough as the other one.
Yeah, but I think these are supposed to be like it's from the lore of this book. Attacking Dresden wasn't supposed to be easy. Like, so I think the scenario kind of marks that.
I like the randomness. You could all end up on one segment with weird rolls. So.
Yeah, and the Axis armies deployed evenly, so
Yep.
they're rushing to get over.
My question is, I don't understand why they just didn't send Lancasters and Flying Fortresses over to level these three, and then land right there.
Those are the ones on the Autobahn before and after these three.
Yeah. No, I do like it. I think there's a very randomness to the beginning that could. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got 10 units. You're going to take 10 pins, probably. Well, you're going to take 10, probably
V2.
10 to 15 pins
Yeah.
across. But you're on rally anyway when you start.
Well,
You're
but
flip-
it didn't say when you scatter, if you're off table or on a tower, you're
Destroy.
taking
Oh
out.
yeah. If when
Yeah.
you do that scatter and you put everything down, you can't be placed in impassable terrain. Then you're gone. You're
Or
So
off
you're
the-
going to have to figure out where, because an average is 7, right? So you have to make sure you're 7 away from any edges or whatever.
Yeah.
or the flak batteries themselves, because they are also impassable terrain.
Mhm.
So you can't just land on the flak battery
Nope.
or
Yep,
too
yep.
close to it, because if you scatter onto it.
Yeah.
So reading it,
Uh,
I don't see any quick, easy, you're gonna win if you do this. You know, like we were talking about the other scenario where you put all the stall trooping up on the hill and having a picnic because they're watching the the U.S. forces just get mowed down trying to get through, right?
Yeah, the only thing I think is that is probably if it depends on your force as a defender,
Yeah.
right? You could go all I mean, Trooping and stuff,
Which
with
would add
lots
more
of
flak.
fast firing weapons and stuff, more pins to throw out. I think I'd go with there's 3, so I'd have, if I could, 12 5-man units of Totem Core. Just 5 guys on each flank, each edge of my zone, with a 3-man werewolf team able to. So as soon as you come in and I'm like, right, I'm on you. Right, I get you. That'd be it. But yeah, I think this is really. I really like this scenario. I think this is better than the first one, because the first one's really stacked.
Yeah.
Right. This one is very random, and the first round or 2 will make a big difference on how you perform.
Yeah, and because it's so random, if you win or lose, you can't say you're a tactical fucking genius. Pardon my language, but you can't, because I mean,
No.
if my entire force comes down in segment 1 and you're divided evenly between segments 1 through 3, I'm dropping 2,000 points and your flak doesn't do anything. You know, you're already divide and conquer type thing. But that being said, if I come down evenly and your flak comes and works its butt off, I'm going to have next to no units to do anything with on a 1-to-1 basis anyway. So I do like that randomness that really is going to make you think, or just make it super easy. But I like those games. I like the puzzle games. I don't like the easy wins or the, I don't know. For a story scenario, I liked it.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Smell undead. Fight forever.
All right, and we're back. And Buffalo, I'm assuming, beats.
Buffalo beat Montreal 4-2.
There you go. Canadians beat Americans. That's generally how it works, right? Americans on Canadian teams and Canadians on American teams.
Well, yeah, Buffalo beat Montreal, so
Yeah.
All right.
Just poking the bear. All right, we're back. Like I said.
Well, there's no bears in this mission.
No, and only
This mission
buffaloes.
This is called the Power of the Rift. So you remember the story about how Iron Woman got her power armor and ran out of Dresden, trashing the joint?
That's what she did.
Well, this is that mission. This is page 90. It's called the Power of the Rift. And it's a little simpler than we had with the previous mission, but still it's pretty straightforward. And you're doing the same thing you did with the flak towers. You are destroying, in this case, the buildings with the rift tech in them. But this has an interesting setup. This one here. Let me make sure I get it right. So this mission is going to be 2000 on 2000 again. But it's basically Roberta Wells versus Zoglig, and wherever Zoglig is, you're going to have Zoglig's minions. So it's Roberta Wells, and remember she was rescued by the 109th, so it's going to be another Firefly platoon with some Firefly squads. Again, no, they say no power armored for the Americans because I don't think they even had any power armor in this whole theater across the Rhine. Maybe they did in Valentine, but they not here, not in Touchdown. You still get the light artillery. You still get and you still can get some light anti-tank, and you can still take the jump thing. So basically, it's the 109. So if you look at the order of battle for the 109th, that's what they're saying you take in this as well. That order of battle I went over at the beginning. And then on the other side, you've got to have at least 2 Tottenkorf and Zoglig, which comes in around 700 points. So the rest, I guess, you can do whatever you want. But it's going to be another 6x4. And in this one, you have to destroy some buildings. So there's going to be, it starts with, and I believe it also starts with there's this one that starts with Roberta Wells on the table. And then, yeah, Roberta Wells starts on the table. And the active player is defender. And then you deploy within the buildings. Three of your units have to deploy in the buildings as defender, and then you first wave everybody else onto the table. Roberta Wells starts 18 inches into the table, and you first wave in the rest of the as much of the 109th as you want, and then whatever you don't is going to be reserved. So Roberta Wells is on the table. 3 buildings are on the table, populated by the German forces, and then everything else can first wave on. So it's a 6x4. You've got buildings scattered all around the 6x4 somewhat evenly, and what the Allies have to do is go around blowing up buildings, and then get Roberta Wells off the table. So, and what the Axis forces have to do is they have to get Roberta Wells and then basically that's it. They have to get Roberta Wells and try not to blow up. So the win conditions for the Axis were just basically capture her and kill the attackers. So the attackers are trying to destroy buildings and not lose Roberta Wells and get off the table after they've destroyed the buildings. And I think they had to destroy 3. But there's an interesting rule in here, and that is there's 2 interesting rules. One is the random explosion happening around the table. So this template randomly goes around the table. It's a 4-inch template, and it just bombards whatever's underneath it. And the other is, if you get into hand-to-hand combat with Roberta Wells and you defeat her, she's now like an objective that you carry with you, and you can try and carry her away from the Allies. And if you win the game with her, you get bonus points for that. So it's another, you have to win by 3. So it's so if you're the Allies, you can get, if you get off the table, Roberta Wells off the table, it's worth a couple points. You get a point for killing stuff. Get 3 for blowing up a building. Or no, that's the other one. What was this one? That's the 3rd mission. This one is.
No, you get 3 points for the building.
3 points for the building in this one, right?
Defender gets 1 point for each unit destroyed.
3 points.
Auto win with Roberta.
Yeah. Yeah, 3 victory points. Oh, yeah. Oh, so it's an auto win with Roberta. Okay. Yeah, so that's good. That is, it's fun because you're trying to capture Roberta for the extra points in this one. And the random rift energies plopping down makes the game interesting. So it's another sort of randomness. Same thing we saw with the first mission. It's got this random factor going on that makes it really cool. And fun and maybe repeatable as well. Again, it's not really I guess you could have a weird. I wouldn't want to do a tournament with these missions.
Oh no.
I would just want to play them as narrative, like you were playing the Battle of Waterloo or something, and bring the forces, bring the 109th, and have Zogling and his and the people from around town, and just play it out.
Mhm.
But what do you guys think of that? What do you think of that rift surging, that rift storm? I think that's the coolest part.
Yeah.
It does that
Yeah.
alignment again, and then just whatever the whatever the dice is. So there's 2 dice that go in the bag, and if you pull out one of the bag, that's the rift bombardment, and you roll it, and depending on what face it is what it's going to do to whatever's underneath the template. And surge is bad.
Oh yeah. The drawback being, and I don't think this is much of a drawback because I think people are going to have multiple colored dice just like they do for order dice. Eventually people are going to have 2 colors of rift dice, but if you're just in a small group that's playing right now, chances are there's only 2 rift colored dice, so you're going to have to put in another die in there and just pretend it's a rift die.
Yeah.
And I hope people aren't feeling for pips and whatnot, but whatever the case may be. I like the escaped prisoner mechanic that they've put in. If you defeat Roberta Wells in close combat, she becomes an objective marker.
Yeah.
If you kill the unit that has that objective marker, she comes back. Now,
Yeah.
when she comes back, her rift dice are exhausted, and her luck, guts, and does she have Rift Master? And her Rift Master, well, her Rift dice, so and her luck and guts are depleted, but she gets you get her order die back.
Yep.
So I kind of like that. Like, you're an objective for me, and you're alive. You're objective. You're alive. Like, she is actually escaping.
It gives you an idea for other narrative missions that could take place in, the SAS or something.
Yeah, like for bolt
Mhm.
action, like for those objectives, like is it top secret? Like, you could have a scientist, an archaeologist, another officer, on my
Dude.
team, objective for your team.
Dude, this is I think my favorite scenario of those so far, because
Is
I
it
just
random destruction? I like the random destruction.
I like the random destruction,
But the
it
random
can randomly
destruction in
destroy
this-
anybody. It's equal sides.
Yeah,
random
it's
destruction.
the randomness is very even on both. Like,
But
whereas
you
the other one,
really
it's
have as you've both really got. You've got the Roberta. You've got 2 missions. You've got the Roberta Wells component. You're both
Yeah.
trying to save her, and then you've got the facilities destruction component.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I was the Axis player, I would ignore the facilities. I would just completely go after Roberta Wells, right? Because I'm either going to win, or I'm going to lose heavy. That would be my thing. So,
well, and you
I
have
like
to
the idea of it, though.
and you have to win by 3 VPs, right?
No, you auto win, right?
No, but if you don't have Roberta, so it is still skewed to the Axis because there's limited amount of points that because there's 3 facilities, so there's 9 points that the Allies can get, and then the the Axis can get 1 point for every unit destroyed. Well, in a 2,000 point list, I'm going to have at least 11 or 12 units. So if you can save one building and kill 90% of my forces, you're probably going to win by 3. Or you just get Roberta Wells and you win.
I think the fun will be after Roberta Wells. I'd just be like, there's a big conga line of my undead chasing Roberta around the map. I like that one. I think that's a good one. Now, there is a if you want to upgrade your scenario, and you could do this for any. This is like the Fog of War. What's the Total War one that you have in Bolt Action? Which and even in Conflict 47, where you can have
Total War, yeah,
it's Total War.
You can have the Roving Dead variant upgrade pack for your scenarios.
Yeah.
More Rift dice.
More Rift dice. And this is where, at least to me, I love the idea of the Total Core being this. It's
completely controlled.
More like it's not completely controlled. It's more like point it in that direction and
make sure you're still behind them.
Yeah, they infest. They can't take, which I like the idea of that. They infest. So this is a great upgrade that you can use, and you add in extra Rift dice. So this is called the Roving Dead variant, and this is where you can place. You place a unit of Total Core in the center of each table quarter, which is 6 models, and each with an active Rift die. And so you need to make sure that you've got multiple Rift die going here. I mean, you could probably find ways around it, right? You can, but this is the main one. You have 4 order dice to the die. You at the start of the game add 4 order dice to the dice bag of a different color to either of the players. So you could just randomly draw these units while you're playing. I think this is a fun little upgrade, but the Roving Dead, you follow the rules. You roll a d6 if the die is drawn for one of these Roving Dead units, and you roll a dice. On a 1, they don't do anything really. They go down. If it's had any casualties, is active or surge die, it will make use of its active Rift die. So basically, it heals itself. It creates more zombies. If you roll a 2, the Roving Dead unit advances towards the nearest unit, stops 1 inch away, so basically it won't assault. And if it's suffered any casualties, again, it will heal itself up. On a 3, now that's just a 4-inch move, right? These are slow moving things. So even a run for number 3 is just 8 inches, but it will assault if it's close enough. And if it's exhausted, the Rift died, then it counts as a 2. On a 4, so you start to get a 50-50 chance of this now. The attacker may assign an order of their choice to the Roving Dead unit. So you can then send that wherever you want to go and assault a defending enemy unit, unless it's exhausted. On a 5, it's the other way around. So the defender now gets to assign the order dice instead. And then on a 6, the Roving Dead unit immediately changes its Rift dice to surging, puts it straight in the bag.
The order dice back in the day.
The order dice back in the bag. And you get to re-roll the result if the surging Rift die. So pretty cool. And there's just a couple of extra paragraphs. So if the Roving Dead unit is in close combat, when an order die is assigned, instead, you assign a run order and fight up to 2 rounds of close quarters combat, which is pretty good for Total Core because they never really go away. Even with just 6 guys, they could last forever. I had a battle. Derek and I had a practice battle report, and I think I had a unit of 8 Total Core versus 3, 4 of your automatons, your Mark 1s.
Mark 2s.
3 Mark 2s.
Because they're the hard to kill.
It took about 10 rounds of combat, but in the end, my guys pulled him down because every time I lost one, I basically just came back. So,
Yeah.
well, no, I didn't come back. I didn't lose any because you didn't really hurt me. But
I think at the end I
could
had none and you
pull
had
them down.
two, and then you were just
Yeah.
back to full when you were.
And then after the round afterwards, I was back to full,
Yeah.
and I then ran them. During the end phase, when exhausted dice are rolled, if any are active or surging are rolled, randomly determine which roving dead unit it goes to. So you have to see which one it is. And then when a roving dead rift die is drawn from the dice bag and rolled, randomly determine which roving dead unit to assign it to from those available. So this is a cool little thing. Again, I just like the what's happening behind it. I would love to try this in if you wanted to play the last scenario in hard mode for the allies.
Yes.
For either, to be honest.
Yeah.
Total Core versus Total Core is going on forever. But yeah, so what do you guys think? Would you play with that scenario? And
I would add them to any game.
Yeah. I feel like this is
bolt action.
Yeah, this is fighting a war during Walking Dead.
Yeah.
You just don't know what's out there. You're creating all kinds of noise, attracting the zombies, but you got to kill your enemy, and holy crap, here they come.
Yeah, you could do a bolt action game. You could do Operation Cobra with the roving dead added into it.
Yeah, that would be a cool one to do, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's very thematic with the surging dice coming forward, because they are attacking everybody and just adding those. Like, I know it's thematic to its unit, but with these story scenarios, it's very thematic that the Totem Corp are just roving around, and they grab a Firefly, they grab a Soviet, and then now they're they hit the Wehrmacht because they're out of control at the moment. So you got like all these different uniforms in this pile.
Yeah.
I absolutely love this variant. I think it's I could actually see this being in a tournament scenario. Because
that is just an added
an added twist to one of the scenarios for fun. For a tournament that everybody's going into, that's we're going to try to make this red versus blue. We're going to try to have us like an overarching theme of a story of like you're moving towards Dresden, where you're not using the story missions, scenario missions, because they're a little bit too unbalanced, but you could kind of throw this into one just to add some fun,
Yeah.
And maybe it's the last mission of the day because everybody's brain's fried and you're just throwing fun at them. And, maybe the top table, you say, okay, you guys are fighting for top table. We want to remove the luck. So we're going to take this out if you both agree, or whatever the case may be. But it just adds that level of fun. Like,
Yeah. No,
I would definitely warn players ahead of time. Hey, one of the scenarios is going to have this. If you don't want this, don't come to the tournament.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's a good one. I like that one. But you could also do this. I like this idea. It allows you to just come up. I'd love to do. It's inspired me to do. What would be great would be to do a scenario where the Axis have sent out trucks to collect the zombies, right? And the Allies are trying to stop them, right?
Kind of like a reverse, the reverse Roberta Wells.
Big refrigeration truck driving around.
Kind of like the reverse Roberta Wells. Instead of chasing Roberta Wells down, you're trying to kill the zombies before they get in the truck.
Trying to get the zombies. That's right. Yeah. They're randomly moving around the table, right? So you have to beat them in combat and then drag them off. Yeah. So. So that's the Roving Dead variant. Sean and I actually received orders from our Green Vault masters that actually this will be a 3-part series.
That's true. It was the plan all along.
Yeah,
it was the plan all along. And we're going to start off our next episode with the final scenario, Pursued by the Harvestman. and then we will do a wrap up of Operation Valentine, and then leave you with our final thoughts on the first book and what's coming next.
Yeah, there's the Dresden Defiant denouement at the end of the book.
That's right. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then we talk about book 2.
Can't
So-
wait. Can't wait for book
Ju-
2 already.
I know, right? So join us in the next part where we'll see what t-shirts we're wearing in part 3.
Because we're not filming these in the same weeks. All right. I'll see you.
Okay.
Yeah.